Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. We are back after, a little break to end the year on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. What's up, DB?
How we doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Hanging in there.
Long time no see.
Yeah, it's been what? 9 days?
Yeah, it's a week and a half, basically.
Oh, it's a long time for us.
It is. It is. How was New York?
New York was good.
Yeah.
So we started and ended with a delay. Kind of like how Shane permanently lives his life.
7 seconds.
Yeah. Because there was a grid going on. There's a gridlock going on in a couple of the big hubs around the country. So I think Chicago, New York, and there was one more.
Yeah. Because you flew out 23rd, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we actually flip-flopped. It was originally on the first plane. They had to get that plane out of there. So that plane left, I don't know, maybe 10?
Mm-hmm.
10:10. And I was on the ground with security. So I wheels up probably 12:20.
Okay.
So it wasn't terrible.
No.
But from
a couple hours there, though.
Yeah, and we split. So some went to JFK, some went to Newark.
Oh, okay.
Which was cool. Bus was good.
Because the players' planes, they were going right to the stadium, right?
Right. They went right to the Meadowlands.
Yeah. So they went to Newark, I assume?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't bad. I screenshot it. I don't think my Twitter game, I didn't do much on social media, a ton.
You were kind of low-key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was so much going on. You're on a schedule.
Oh, so you guys were busy, right? Like, you guys were like, boom, boom, boom.
It's like, man.
The rule is not going to leave a lot of downtime.
Man.
You have 5 days, when did you leave? The 20th, 29th?
28th. So we left right after the game.
Okay.
But we didn't get out of the stadium until, the trucks had to load up. Like, it is a well-oiled machine. When he was like, hey, man, I appreciate the staff and stuff that put it together.
Yeah.
He's right, though. There is no manual.
Yeah.
And New York makes it more difficult because of the logistics.
Right.
See, back in the day, we would be there 8 days, pretty much the same spot.
Yeah. You knew
I remember
you were very familiar with Miami and the Orange Bowl.
The one time we went to a different practice location in Miami.
Yeah.
We went to this it's like a little junior, I don't know what it was. It's just outside Liberty City. Like, it was.
Yeah.
It was kind of in the hood. But, they moved their whole way. That was the one time we were kind of like, oh, this is different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the others. We're not at the Fountain Blue. You know what I mean? And so that was like the one different time in 5 years. Imagine the only time in 8.
Yeah.
With an entirely new department. So it was a lot because his big thing was he didn't want the guy spending 3 hours a day on the bus.
Yeah.
So that was like all the scheduling, all the logistics, the maneuvering was just to make sure that you didn't waste the day.
Yeah, because that'd be real easy in New York. 'Cause there's a lot of
you
can spend a lot of time in just transportation,
man,
especially with that many people.
There are a couple times, and I'm not kidding you. I finally had to. It took a while, probably 2 days, maybe, before in my mind, I said, "Man, forget it." I went with the old school neck roll. I taped my fingertips.
Yeah.
Because I stopped wearing gloves, and I was just doing blitz pickup.
You don't wear gloves anymore?
If I was to play tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
I would tape over my fingernails and I would tape around my knuckles.
Okay.
Because I want to use my hands, especially when I strike.
Have a better feel.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha.
Especially Saturday's game. Ooh.
Yeah.
Messy, like Marvin. But I just was like, blitz pickup. I was like, check quick. Bow. Run into somebody walking with their head down.
Mm-hmm.
Bow. Run into somebody else with their head walking. These people, you're elbow to elbow, and people are doing like IG lives and
doing like 100 different things.
It's incredible how the lack of self-awareness.
They're just not paying any attention to anything that's happening outside of.
I don't know if this is a coast thing, but it might be. Full disclosure, this might be. But it could be not from here, like different cultural thing.
Okay.
But when Caleb played in LA, so I've been to a lot of places, a ton of places. It's only along that coast where I see kids that should have their goddamn driver's license in strollers. What is that?
Like how old? Like you're talking about?
Listen, I'm talking full-fledged 7-year-olds getting up out of a stroller,
like being pushed in a stroller by an adult.
Yes. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen.
That's wild.
I'm talking shoe tops dragging. I
was gonna say they got like they got like tucked in.
Hey, listen, man, they're slouched in here like this. Just picture me rolling. They see me rolling. Dude, it's incredible. I was like, what is going on?
So I haven't spent a ton of time on the East Coast, a little bit, but not a ton. I've spent way more time on the West Coast. Yeah. It might be a Northeast thing because I have never seen that in California.
I'm talking giant-ass kids in strollers. I was like
big-ass Ty Robinson in a stroller?
Yeah. So, and I got a, Big A, Shane sent me the number because I tried to get him on social media. I forgot I never had him locked in. We just talked through DMs.
Yeah.
Well, my man was taking too long. I was like, hey, I need a couple of off-the-grid, low-key spots.
Yeah.
So he started a couple blocks away from right where I was staying.
Because he lives upstate, but he spends a lot of time in the city, right?
So he's kind of more of a Long Island guy.
Oh, okay. So not upstate, but off
Yeah,
okay.
But he was in Manhattan for a while. He told me about this Chinese place.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Pretty good.
Best I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah. So I didn't really do it go ahead, you cue the make fun of me. I DoorDash dinner twice.
That's not. I'm surprised it's only twice, honestly.
I mean,
I would have guessed if you were there 5 days, I would have guessed that you DoorDashed 4 times.
Yep.
That would have been my guess.
That's about right.
Yeah. But a couple of them were lunch?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair.
So, I only ate at one bougie spot.
Where was that?
It's called the Beef Bar.
How was it?
I blame Hoger. That's on Hogerson. So, dude, his son Logan.
Yeah.
Is the real deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a real one.
Like in what sense?
It's always hard sometimes being the kids of coaches.
Sure.
But I mean, obviously, Coach Hogerson's been through a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And his son was, I could have talked to him for, a couple of days.
How old is he?
Man, it's hard to gauge.
Out of high school?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to get.
30s?
Oh, okay. So he's like an adult.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, just a regular dude.
Yeah.
And he was incredible.
Yeah.
So he may be my new favorite.
Okay.
It's hard. Like if I rank staff and kind of their offspring, and I still think I still think Coach's wife is probably 1.
Okay.
His son's probably 1A. Yeah, daughter's pass rule 2. Then I might go with Logan. Then it's a crapshoot.
It's free for all.
Yeah,
it's free for all.
It's a crapshoot, but yeah, just the insight and the backstories and
yeah.
So and he's actually the reason why I hit the Beef Bar.
Yeah,
because his girlfriend has a friend, I guess, because there's these Michelin folks, and because that's another cool thing about where we were is, you get a Michelin chef in like a hole in the wall.
Oh yeah,
little corner spot.
Yeah,
right. They're over here at Roxy's Deli, which by the way, Katz's Deli.
Yeah, overrated.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's got to be the equivalent. Now, I'm not going to put our local restaurants on blast, but I could see that being the equivalent to some tourist traps here, where everybody's like, "Oh, you got to go too."
Oh, I think I know what place.
And then it's like, I wouldn't go there.
I'll ask you off air. I think I know what you're talking about.
There's 2 that come to mind.
Yeah, there's one that I think I know what you're talking about. But
and so
that's kind of how it is, though, right? Is there's always a couple places where, because I think I've heard that about Cats before, where it's like that's not the deli.
Nah, man, it's not.
That's not the deli you want to go to.
It's not.
I don't remember which ones they told me was the place, but it's like, yeah, you don't want to go unless you're doing it for the tourist thing.
And so, like on about the 26th, where I was going stir crazy, but your boy just walked.
Yeah.
Well over 19K in steps.
Oof.
I just walked.
That's like a
And so, and I'm by myself, so I can go.
it's like
I don't have
almost
to
a
worry
half
about.
marathon, man.
Listen, no, I meant for like the 3-day stretch.
Oh,
There was a 3-day
gotcha.
stretch from Christmas
Mhm.
to the day before we left, so Friday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
Where
Just walking.
Yeah, because I was basically on my own.
Yeah.
And I touched every part of. I spent. I don't know. I'm pretty familiar with Hell's Kitchen now. A couple guys. I was like, yeah, my man. And I was trying not to wear no Nebraska gear. So, like, I just found a couple of hole in the walls.
Yeah.
And chilled. The Chinese place though.
Was that your favorite place you ate?
Ooh, Beef Bar's tough.
Yeah.
But Beef Bar's bougie.
Sure. Yeah.
Chinese was like, dude came in his pajamas.
If a Chinese place is bougie, you're in the wrong Chinese place.
Yeah, it's a place called Four Corner.
Yeah. It's kind of the same with like Indian places. Like if you're at a place like that that's bougie, you're in the wrong
Darbar
place.
was right around the corner from me, open for Christmas
Yeah.
dinner.
Did you get any?
Darbar, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty legit. Pretty legit. You know, I had to have some Indian.
Well, I know. Well, you missed me.
Yeah. So it was like, but the trip was so businessy though.
Yeah.
And a couple of guys got lost on the subway at the next game.
Oh, did they?
Oh yeah. There's probably shout out to Van Poppel's uncle who saved about
For getting them sorted?
16 players that kept getting going back down to 23rd Street, catching the same train and winding up at the same spot.
I'm not going to laugh too hard because I got lost in Council Bluffs on Saturday.
What? What?
I don't spend a lot of time across the river. I just don't, right? But I was coming home from the Creighton game, and there was police directing traffic, right? And so they sent me away. I didn't want to go.
They sent you east on 10th?
No, so I was parked back behind.
Yeah, I know where you're talking about, the guardrails. So you're 1 block south of CHI?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know where you're at.
And then they sent me like back towards.
You're down behind like in a little nook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they sent me back towards like towards.
Why'd you park there?
I got a little situation.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay,
Honestly, I don't know.
So they sent me back towards
I
like
parked
Abbott.
there once for Bud boxing.
Yeah.
And I walked down the grassy hill towards the water to the back of CHI.
Yeah, like the the
I
press
did
entrance.
that. I did that once.
Yeah. So I don't walk down the grass hill. I take the
Because I wanted to come in with those when those guys got there.
Yeah.
So I came in.
Yeah, for sure.
He was fighting. It was the Gamboa fight.
I was at that one.
It was the Gamboa fight.
I wasn't over there. I was hanging out with Bud,
I wanted to feel important, and so But then leaving, I had to walk back up that hill.
Yeah.
It was the shortcut to get back to my car.
So what I do, my trick is I just walk through the building and I exit at the top.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I just walk straight out.
You use the building as your
as my stairs.
Yeah.
And so I'm not walking outside in the cold. But so I'm parked over there and they sent me over by like Abbott.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I don't like going all the way up Cumming and going on the interstate there.
That's my old stomping grounds because I used to work at the Open Door Mission.
Yeah, hey, me too. So it takes forever to get to the interstate from Cumming.
Oh yeah.
Either way you go, it takes forever. So I'm like, I don't really want to go by the airport and take that way. I don't really want to go down by Creighton and take that way. And so I took.
You veered right and not left.
No. Yes.
It kind of forks.
Yep. And so I end up going towards Council Bluffs instead of towards Omaha. And it's not like terribly well marked over there.
No.
And like I'm pretty good with my directions in Omaha, but if I'm in a place where I'm not familiar.
Where'd you know you were in trouble when it said Council Bluffs, Kansas City?
Yeah, it was like Council Bluffs, Kansas City, Sioux City, and I was like, I don't want to go to any of those places.
Nah.
I know right where you were.
And so I exit. I take my very first exit because I was like, I don't want to get too deep into this thing.
Yeah.
So I take my very first exit. I'm in a part of Council Bluffs I have never seen before.
Hey, were you so competitive you just didn't want to type in your address?
Well, so I didn't want to type. There was enough traffic. I didn't want to type it while I was driving.
Oh yeah, you are like that. You're very safe driver.
I'm trying not to be distracted, right? And so I pull off, and I like
driving me crazy in Indianapolis. By the way,
I know. You're like, no, I need you to go. Cut this guy off. I need you to go. And I was like, well, I feel like I'm about to poop my pants, so I'm gonna listen to you because we gotta go. We do not have all day. So I'm like, I end up in like some apartment complex parking lot, and I have no idea where I am. I probably look like I'm casing the joint because I'm just like sitting there in my car, and I turn the lights off because I'm trying not to like blind people coming in and out. But it looks like I'm just sitting there being super creepy. But I'm trying to figure out, so I put my address in or whatever. But
if it was me trying to figure it out, probably I'd be like, oh, geez.
Even then, it wasn't like my map couldn't find me immediately, and so I'm kind of just guessing.
Oh man, that kind of reminds me of you ever use your phone to walk?
Yeah. Oh, it's rough sometimes.
That is the worst.
You're gonna laugh at me. You probably know this though, because of the spring game with Jay. I do that around Memorial Stadium. Because, like, I do, man. Well, I don't have a parking pass, right? I don't.
It's not even that big.
No. So here's the deal. I don't have a parking pass for games. So I end up parking, like, wherever.
Yeah.
Wherever I can find. Yeah. And I don't have a real good sense for Lincoln. I've never spent a ton of time there. Mm-hmm. So I am just like, I have to use my map to get from wherever I parked to the stadium. And it's kind of a nightmare sometimes because it doesn't like find me.
Man,
and there's
a classic.
Too many people down there. And so I'm the New York guy on my phone trying to but I'm just trying to walk. And until I can see the stadium, I'm like,
those people were driving me crazy.
I'm not on IG Live though. I'm just trying to get to the stadium.
just insufferable.
Yeah.
But the cool thing was, like, on Christmas, everybody was gone. So I'm sitting in my hotel somehow by myself.
Yeah.
And it's
You're just watching games all day?
Yeah, I'm super competitive.
Yeah.
Right? And do you know how long it took me to turn away from? I'm like, the Chiefs Steelers game. I'm like, I'm not letting myself off the hook. I'm gonna stomach this. If they want to suck, I'm gonna endure with them. I'm not gonna let myself. Just dumb, stupid, competitive gamification.
Yeah.
If I want them to hang in there, I could at least hang in there. This is the kind of stuff I'm saying as I'm bouncing on my bed.
How fast?
Jordan's texting me. St. Louis Jordan is like texting me, and I was like, I hate this guy, but at least he's not rubbing it in. I'm bouncing on my bed.
How fast do you think our guy Matty D turned away from that Oregon game last night?
Hey, what a debacle. So, I'm like gutting it, but I was hungry. So fortunate to make the cut list for the team Christmas dinner, which was super bougie.
Yeah.
In the hotel. It's something your wife would do for like however many heads.
Yeah.
Probably 100 maybe.
For you guys?
Some family, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but like Zoe is like on a boat somewhere with the lady or the Statue of Liberty.
With the lady on the door.
So I'm just milling around. I was like, man, do I go to this dinner? It's like 3:15.
Yeah.
Because you guys eat early. So it was.
What do you mean, you guys? I really don't know what you mean by you guys in that scenario.
Anyway, it was at 3. So I was like, I'm not used to eating in the middle of the day, but I got duped into it. But then I was hungry like late.
Sure, yeah.
But it's Christmas, so it's like 9 o'clock, and that was one of the few. That's when I
Chinese restaurant
sushi.
Oh yeah, most of the Asian places are open on Christmas.
Yeah, so
they start.
So Big A said most of the Jewish people in New York go
Chinese.
Chinese.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
So sushi was easy, and it was spectacular. Mm-hmm. And it got there in like 17 minutes. So I went down and met the dude because he called and didn't. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
It's hard to.
Just a little bit of a language barrier.
Bro, it was like. You ever seen Wind Talkers?
Yeah.
Anyway. Damn.
You speaking Navajo out there? What's going on?
Bro, I don't know what it was. But even when he came inside, like he had his motorcycle helmet on.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
No waste of time, man.
I made the mistake, ODB, of asking why this dude was in a motorcycle helmet. Because, I'm thinking, ooh, technology. Maybe he's talking to me through his helmet so I couldn't hear.
Yeah.
Say what you got to say.
He said most of the people, they use those motorized bikes.
Yeah, like little scooters.
No, it looks like a 10-speed, but it powers itself.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So he said that's how they deliver food.
Yeah.
My man has 6 stops.
Getting after it.
I was like, wow, he's about to stay paid.
Trying to, got to make that Christmas money.
Yeah, so every place was open. It was cool.
Yeah, I imagine New York is a little better about options than Omaha on Christmas,
Yeah, so, and then, the only other, like, what I would say was not the greatest, but I was with Jess and Brandon, so it helped. We didn't want to take the early bus over to practice because everybody went to the 9/11 memorial.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so that bus was leaving at, like, 6:30.
Mm-hmm.
But practice wasn't until 11:30. So, and it was over at Fordham. And so we took the Uber. I got a Lyft.
Mm-hmm.
They took us through Harlem instead of going where the bus drivers went. So that was a little bit of a traveling adventure. But I'm like, shoot, I'm just glad. Good thing the price is already locked in. You can take as long as you want to, as long as you get us there before they start practice. So it's funny, too, because you talk to enough people there, and there are places, they said there are drivers that know the city, and there are drivers that plug in Google Maps.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
So our bus drivers knew the city.
That's good.
Man, we were getting to Fordham in like 28 minutes.
Yeah, that's a huge difference. That's a huge difference.
And chemistry won, too, Ravi. Kind of the theme of this bowl.
Continuity.
Yes, chemistry won.
We love chemistry and continuity.
It's winning right now, right?
It is winning right now. We'll see tonight, Notre Dame, Georgia, because Notre Dame had some of the best chemistry continuity in the country.
We got to talk to. You still think my winner comes out of that half?
We'll get into it. We'll see what happens. That's DB. I'm Ravi.
But what about Ohio State? They look awesome.
They look better in Texas. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming next. Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. And we are brought to you by our friends over at the NDOT. Hey, be careful out there. There's a little bit of snow. They did a pretty good job.
Yeah, the streets were treated pretty well.
But just keep your head on a swivel. Be aware. Make sure you are keeping your eyes focused and straight ahead, because as a driver, that is your job to drive. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Be careful out there, as I know a lot of people are heading back to work like we are this fine morning.
Yeah, it caught me off guard. That lineup came across last night. I was like, wait, we're working? So I don't know why I had it in my head.
I knew you were serious, too.
I was dead dog serious. I was like, whoops.
Yeah. Like, I knew in my head we were coming back today, but still I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't realize that the second was like tomorrow. You know what I mean?
I was just getting ready to say it's weird coming back on a Thursday at the end of the week.
Right? Yeah, it really is. It's
then
super
I had to
strange.
remind myself, I'm like, shoot, this might be my last hurrah Nebraska City today, too.
Oh, yeah?
I think so. They like basically just decide what I'm doing. And I think at the end of
somebody just send you a text message like,
no, I think they were like, hey, can we do
a bowl one?
A bowl wrap up?
Yeah.
And I think I said, I think so. But there were so many, it's like,
yeah,
and it's pretty laid back. I mean, there's 40 folks in there.
It's a good crew.
Yeah, it's the same group too,
Yeah.
so they know me really, really well.
Yeah, actually, you've been doing this for a couple years.
Yeah, I think it's impromptu.
That they just decide.
Yeah.
Well,
so I better.
So you better double check, see if you're going to Nebraska City today.
Man, I got to take an 8-hour stop class too.
Do you?
Yeah.
Did you get a ticket?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Going to Nebraska City.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, that little hidden spot.
Yeah. You gotta be careful on those, man.
But 57 and a 50 is 57 and a 45.
I mean, if you get 10 over, it's a pretty fair game.
Yeah, it's coming down the hill.
I hate it when it's coming down the hill.
And it's that little stretch going towards 370.
Yep.
And the guy is. I told you, like, it was kind of my fault that he approached me the way he did, because I know why he was not the nicest. And it wasn't just because his affiliation with law enforcement. Like, immediately, because it's like 11:10. and I know it's 54 minutes to Nebraska City.
Yeah.
Like on the dot.
So you're like, I got to go.
Well, I don't have to, like, I just know it takes me that time.
Yeah.
So I immediately was getting everything ready. So he probably sees me reach into the glove box.
Sure.
Because he approached with extreme caution.
Yeah.
On the passenger side.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh.
Here's what I don't get, though, right?
My bad.
Is they want you to have the stuff ready so you don't have to reach for it while they're there. But then, like, they get weird when you when they can see you reach for it.
Like, I'm a ride with him on this one.
No, I get it, but I just don't know what you're supposed to do then.
Because he was pretty cool.
Because I'd rather reach early than while they're there, right?
Until he got back to the car, he was not pretty cool.
But like once he ran everything,
he goes, do you know the speed limit? And I go, no. I said, actually, I don't.
Yeah.
I drive this all the time going to Nebraska City. And he said, well, then you should know the speed limit. I was like, wow, all right. Just remember, you reached into the glove. He's probably a little.
No, I get it.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. But I don't know how you do. I don't
know when you're supposed to reach for it.
But he gave me all the deals.
Would make him comfortable,
Because my insurance has been fantastic, and I'm not about to mess with it.
Yeah, I got you. A lot of people,
shout out NDOT.
We love our guys at NDOT. A lot of people have been talking about one of your guys, Jaylen Lloyd.
Oh yeah,
I know
man.
A lot of people were bummed out by the fact that he's in transfer portal. About him, I know I was excited for him to start the year. It seemed like a lot of his snaps kind of got replaced by Barney. So from that standpoint, I kind of understand why he would maybe want to move on, especially I think you got a couple guys with similar skill sets coming in again in this class, whether it's Cortez Mills or some of the Gilmore from Kentucky. Hardly Gilmore. I think he's fully Gilmore, but
well, they're pretty happy. No pun intended. Apparently, for just a pup, his upside is
yeah. So like with personnel
literally
wise,
just a pup.
Yeah, because he reclassified, right? So
as a 16-year-old.
Yeah, so he played in the SEC is 17 last year.
Yeah.
So
the funny thing about that?
Yeah.
Before we get to the whole Lloyd thing, because that night when he went in, immediately 2 Power 4 schools, one sent a DM, said that they were going to call. The other just called.
Yeah.
So it turned into a 3-hour conversation.
Sure.
For me.
Yeah.
And then
because you guys are close.
Very.
Yeah.
Well, and I had to call Dante.
Yeah, for sure.
So
because you're close with his dad too.
Yeah. And and I have to see him every day.
Yeah.
And I love I love his family.
Mm-hmm.
And so even at the bowl game, this just tells you something's got to change in the December calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to and fro, and some of the staff, I didn't see almost all trip.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, well, where's such and such and such and such? And they're like, oh, they're busy. They're handling the portal. I have to rebuild this whole team now of how to delegate, how to do the transfer portal if nothing changes.
Yeah.
Like he said, it's nonstop.
Yeah.
And so when I finally saw Coach Vincent and Coach Williams, I mean, you could just tell they were wearing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to be exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like to Keith, I'm like, man, you got to smile more.
Mm-hmm.
But I get it. He just and dumb me, it's not like I'm helping him out. And I just hit him with another name the other day.
Yeah.
I'm
like, yeah, I should look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I'm partly to blame too, but just that's how they had to divvy up even the bowl
responsibilities. Yeah.
Right. They should be getting ready for a game.
Yeah.
But
that's how it's going to be, though. You're basically going to have 2 different staffs.
They have to do something with the calendar.
Yeah.
So, when the Lloyd news hit, I was kind of, I mean, obviously you're disappointed, but I kind of understand.
You weren't stunned, though.
No.
I mean,
no, not given the last. I mean, the whole thing started. And I'm not get too much into it, but the whole thing, the week that he got sick, where they had the sickness running around, I think was kind of and then you get a new fresh set of eyes, and then that was encouraging, and then you also watch what else is happening around you, and it's like
Yeah.
And during the whole course of the game, this is exactly what I was thinking, because I went down on the field. I could see the guys taking care of the field early because our pregame started at 8, which was 7 here.
Yeah.
Just dark.
Yeah.
And after I watched the BC guys cuss the Yankees maintenance staff, I mean, clean, smooth the heck out. You talk about two strong personality types.
Yeah. Boston and New York.
Let's just say a couple of the affiliates from the radio station that we talked to from time to time was like, let's not blankety blanking blank act like this is blankety blanking Fenway. You can let us in. It's like blankety blank effing Fort Knox in here. Dude, I was in tears because I had just seen the stadium staff like take the carts and the wheels from Nebraska's football staff.
Yeah.
Like they wanted to wheel. There's a specific way to do things to get that place ready.
Right, yeah.
And Yankee maintenance was not about to let, quote unquote, Nebraska screw it up by wheeling their stuff out. So I'm out on the field early, and I'm watching them, and I knew where they had laid the sod, and it was over the infield, so it was sticky and it was holding water, and I'm like, man, it's going to be a big kids game. Like, I wonder what cleats they're going to wear. But with detachable, you can't change what you're in, but you can change shoes.
Yeah.
You can change in the pros. And so as I'm watching this game unfold with the wide receivers, I'm like, God, they turned this into a big boy kind of intermediate passing game with this track.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. And
that's not going to be good for some people.
Right. And then that was just kind of the
big banks
icing
game
on the cake.
Big banks game.
But we can continue. There's a lot in there.
We'll get into this. More transfer portal talk for Nebraska coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill as we're chatting about Nebraska and everything they had going on, especially not just with the game, but also the transfer portal. They've been busy. I think the general tone of how people have felt about the portal has shifted pretty dramatically in terms of how Nebraska's been doing. Because early it was all the departures, right?
Right.
And people are kind of panicking, and they're like, oh, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do here? And then the commits start coming in. You're like, you kind of feel pretty good about how they've done. At least I do. But the one, we were talking about this before the break, I think one that kind of bothers people a little is Jaylen Lloyd.
Right.
And part of that's local kid, right? Part of it's because we've seen his big playability. And I think it's interesting because from a football standpoint, you understand it in terms of a lot of people have been recruited at his position. From a local standpoint, you kind of wish it would have gone a different way. But then you have this other factor out there with Jaylen Lloyd that I think people forget about sometimes, right? And that's the track factor, where this guy is an elite track athlete, right? And his ability to continue to do that is a big deal in where he ends up or where he stays. So that's a thing that I don't know how that's going to factor into his decision, but I have to imagine it's a bigger deal than is being talked about from a football standpoint.
So I think, yes, that's interesting, because I didn't really think about it from that angle. I think the folks that did reach out, kind of asking if there was anything that they could do, were predominantly Nebraska's track people.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I felt like was interesting. Not to pit one against the other, but one of the first calls that comes from the university was from track and field.
Yeah. Would it be out of line, considering, and I'm not an expert on the track team by any means, but considering the rest of the personnel on football versus the rest of the personnel on track, that he's more valuable to the track team? Is that out of line to say?
I don't know. I always struggle with value.
Okay.
Sure.
He seems less replaceable. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would give you that.
That's what I mean when I say more valuable.
But it's just amazing how, and some of it, I think, with Jaylen is I think there's gonna be a couple moments, I think, of clarity, like when the dust settles, and he'll ask himself, okay, what could I have done differently?
Mhm.
What could they have done differently?
Sure.
And then what can I learn from? So there's always got to be that.
Yeah, that the third question is important.
Right?
What can I learn from this?
Like,
and then the fourth question is, what can I do better now moving forward?
Because there's no, for a kind of a diminutive speed guy, there's no short, there's no, I mean, he has some suitors now.
Yeah.
And so that, I think he can afford to be particular.
Yeah.
I think, but I think one thing that he's got to understand that could really take him to wherever he wants to go, there's a very limited few people with his skill set. Availability. If he's always going to be available,
yeah,
he's
especially with that skill set.
Yeah,
because those guys
because the low hanging fruit, like people that want to move on and say, oh, it's not that big a deal. He's being recruited over, whatever. Is the biggest difference between he and Barney is Barney was always available.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, and that's like,
yeah,
that just is what it is.
Right.
So I think for him,
and all things being equal, or even not quite equal, availability is going to win.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And, and Barney works his tail off too. So it's like,
maybe one of the toughest guys on the offense.
He's pretty tough.
Like he's a dog.
And again, two things can be true at once. I can speak highly of Barney without having to pull Jaylen down.
100%.
Jaylen, his capacity to do work is at a high level. What people have to be cognizant of, and I say this all the time, and this is not just about the wide receiver group. This happened in the tight end room. It happened with two guys along the offensive line. There's this deal where, and you'll know about this because it doesn't even have to be sports specific.
Mm-hmm.
You can think you're operating in some sort of continuum or at a high level because it feels right to you.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's what everybody else is doing, but it may not be what you're capable of.
Yeah.
So once you show what you're capable of, you got to do that all the time.
Yeah, that's what people want from you consistently.
You got to do that all the time.
Yeah.
And it I think if we're being honest, like it happened to, like Fedoni went through that.
Yeah.
Like once upon a time you were your own benchmark.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have to be cognizant of being better than everybody else in that room doesn't mean you're being the best that you can be. Do you understand? You know what I'm telling you?
100%. In The Last Dance, Roy Williams tells a great story about Michael Jordan when he gets to North Carolina.
Yeah.
And he goes, Michael Jordan.
I'm better than everybody. I'm better than these guys. But he's like,
yeah, Michael Jordan goes, I want to be the best that's ever played here. And Roy Williams is like, okay, you're going to have to work a lot harder. And he's like, I work harder than everybody here. And he's like, or as hard as everybody here. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you wanted to be the best that ever played here.
Yeah.
He's like, you don't get to work as hard as everybody else and be the best that ever played here.
The Anthony Edwards thing.
100%.
Remember
with the Warriors.
when he went to the workout with Golden State.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're not working hard enough. He's like, I work really hard.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's not hard enough, right? If you don't know or you've never been pushed to that point where you know what hard work is, then
it's like Benhart.
Yeah, because it's not.
Right, he was kind of his own benchmark for a while. Then you get a couple guys that
push him a little bit. Yeah, and you get a guy
and you have
Raiola.
And you have a coach.
Yeah, you have a coach.
And you have a coach
that can see what you're capable of more than you can.
I gotta tell you, so there's 9 buses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's kind of staggered. So you have support staff, you have admin. They're all labeled. It's you don't just get on a bus.
Sure. Assigned, got everything.
Yeah. Like and you better not.
You
just
better get on your bus.
Yeah, get on your bus. Be where you're supposed to be. And so it's early. It's like 6:10 or something, 6:20. No, it was before that. It was in the 5s because the bus left at 6.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I don't, listen, this is 5:50, man. I'm like, shoot, man, I get all the toothpaste off my mouth. I had already showered, and I'm like, I didn't have time to put on lotion. I'm like, man, it's freezing. My hand, like, I'm going through all these things.
Say, why are you itching over here like you're Ashy Larry? What's going on, man?
Because I had, this is so stupid. I actually that morning used the hotel soap as opposed to my own.
So it's drying you out
because
that thing wet.
My soap was out of the bathroom, and I didn't want to get out with the lights and stuff. So I was just like, oh, fudge, man.
Just use
come back and do whatever. But it's dry.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm waiting at the bottom of the escalators. Like a couple of the linemen come down, and Justin Evans, who says about 4 words a day. That's a mean dude, man. Like, I'm like, golly.
You need some of those.
So they're all waiting. It's like 4 of them, then 6 of them, then 12 of them. They all just wait they kind of stand to the back and just wait by the escalator. Then Coach Raiola comes down, and 2 of the other guys go. And one guy said, it reminded me, you ever see Malcolm X with Denzel?
Mm-hmm.
And he does the thing where he points with his finger. And the police officer goes, that's too much power for one man to have.
Mm-hmm.
So this particular lineman said, okay, everybody's here. We can go now. And they all marched out as a pack to the bus. I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Well, that's that group.
I watch you guys
pretty
all the
close
time.
knit.
They lift the same.
Yeah.
They wear the same things. They tuck their they all. I always see them move in packs. That one like further. You're just going to practice, man. You got to get on the bus the same as a group.
Yep.
And like when he said it, like they all mounted up and just whoosh, like all moved out. I was like, that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to be in a hurry. I'm on like.
Yeah, so you're just watching.
Yeah, I ain't on the good bus. It's like it's just very interesting.
Yeah.
To watch how close those guys were. They did everything together, like as a team.
Yeah. Well, and when we're talking about kind of like work capacity and what you think is hard work versus what somebody else's expectations are, like I think some people are going to hear that as like an effort thing or a lazy thing. But when you're.
Oh, you going back to Jaylen?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Not at all.
No, I know you're not. But like when you're in that moment.
It's just a misnomer that's out there.
Yeah, especially if you haven't like coached or competed at a high level. You understand, like, oh, this person is giving the best effort they think they have.
Yeah.
They just don't know they've got more.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the difference, right?
And I think, and sometimes it can wear on you too when people want you to round back into your 178-pound I'm super healthy form.
Yeah.
Like that may take a while.
Yeah.
But everybody else is still working.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're that talented and you are your own benchmark, I mean that's how it's going to look.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Today, we've also got Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider, and Michael Bruntz. We'll wish him a belated happy birthday from Husker 24/7. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla for Hurrdat Sports. Coming up next. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We are joined now by our friend from the Omaha World Herald, Sam McKewon. Sam, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Hey, Sam, I think we can hear the radio in the back. You want to crank that bad boy down for me? I said crank it down. I don't even think that's a thing. We got to start with the typical. What's the weather forecast? How we looking? Streets clear?
Yeah, they're good. Cold and clear.
Cold.
It's good.
You looked cold and clear last time I saw you. You had the little puffy coat with the nice little hat looking sharp.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at the weather conditions for the stadium?
I was not. Nope. I think we could have probably done without the rain. I think that probably would have made for a better playing surface, but I wasn't surprised by the temperatures. And then, the rain added an element. It added an element of adversity for both teams, and it probably heightened the need to win the line of scrimmage because it was hard to get plays out on the edge of the field where now Boston College got one with a screen pass and Nebraska got a touchdown on that little, I call it a rocket route, I guess a wheel route, whatever you want to call it. but there wasn't a ton of plays out there. They were kind of hard to come by, and so you kind of had to play in between the hash marks a little bit, and I thought Nebraska had the advantage there, and kudos to Nebraska for having the advantage there. And yes, Boston College was missing its best pass rusher. Nebraska was missing, three of its four most productive pass rushers during the season, who all left in the transfer portal: Butler, Yellen, and Williams. Yeah. So both teams were missing pass rushers. And I thought Nebraska handled the conditions better and won the line of scrimmage battle, which they've done often this season. And they came out with the win as a result.
I think quietly, Nebraska's their stuff rate and their ability to handle short yardage runs in those obvious situations, it's got to be better than I think. It's anecdotal because I haven't tracked it like I should, but I'm with you where I felt like I was pleasantly surprised that Nebraska's D-line held up as well as it did against what I think, even without Tapilo, a pretty formidable offensive line, especially the last third of the season for BC.
Yeah, I thought they held up really well too. Ty Robinson helps, and he played more snaps than usual. Nash Huffmacher was there, and MJ Sherman played well. He played really well, I thought, over the last 6 games of this season of his senior year, and he made he popped the one guy's helmet off. He didn't mean to, but it came off when he tackled him. And, I thought they played really well. And Nebraska can take – one of the questions I get a lot since the game is, well, what difference does it make? And I thought, well, with some teams, maybe it wouldn't make quite as much of a difference. Like Syracuse beat Washington State, and I don't know what Syracuse can take from that unless Kyle McCord's given a 6th year and he can come back. But a team like Nebraska can take a lot from winning that game, much like Michigan can take a lot from beating Alabama. They got a lot of guys coming back. There's a physicality that was set. And I think, the young players in both of those games, and it was striking in the Michigan game too, the young players on defense were just stepping up. And so it makes you feel like the defense that Nebraska has coming, while it needs experience, is going to be as good as the defense they just had. And so, maybe that's too high praise. I think replacing Ty Robinson is going to be challenging, but I think you feel good coming out of that game watching those young guys on defense fly around and make plays.
Yeah, I think, and I said this, now this was a hot take then, but this was probably week 6 or 7. Remember, Ravi and I said that this is going to sound crazy because this is a really good Nebraska defense, but if nothing else, they could be more athletic for sure in 2025 than they were in 2024.
Yeah, I think what we saw on Saturday proves that true. I, again, thought that Vincent Shavers and your son and Donovan Jones, guys that we saw Shavers this year, but guys that were kind of waiting in the wings because there were seniors at those positions, they looked really good. Keona Davis made a play. He didn't quite get there, but he was going to get there. Jordan Ochoa looked pretty good in his limited snaps. Riley Van Poppel, who we know what he can do, he looked good in his snaps. So, I just thought there's a lot of young players who made the leap. Again, Ty Robinson, Nash Hupmaker, tough to replace. And so, they either have to get one of these transfers who just is better than we think, or they're going to have to develop some of the guys they have, and they may have to wait a year to get a Ty Robinson who is 24 years old or whatever he was, 23.
It's his capacity to do work too, right? That's kind of undersold. He's an elite level fitness.
Yeah, to play that many snaps at that size.
Yeah, I mean, he's a grown man, and so it would be hard to ask a 19-year-old to do what Ty Robinson was doing this season. Just because, you're talking about 4 years of physical maturity and all things. But I think everywhere else, they're going to be in good shape. I mean, Vincent Shavers played really well. And, Donovan Jones played really well. And so, I think they'll have some growing pains next season. But I also think they're going to play teams that allow them to have that. I don't know what Cincinnati's offense is going to be. I think it's going to be all right. They do have a quarterback coming back, and he's decent. But then you look at Akron and you look at Houston Christian and you even look at Michigan. And I think Nebraska's defense is going to be, in in reasonably good shape. I don't know that Michigan really knows yet what they're going to do at quarterback. They have a transfer coming in, as I believe, and then they got the 5-star freshman, and I don't know if Michigan's going to feel compelled to play him right away. The microscope at Michigan's really, really fierce, and so I don't know if they're going to play that guy right away or sit him or what. So Michigan doesn't know what it's doing at quarterback, and I think Nebraska's defense over that first month next year will have an opportunity to play really well.
Sam, as you look at some of the young guys that played, obviously I feel like we knew more about Shavers and like a guy like Riley Van Poppel. How impressed were you with a Donovan Jones, who we really didn't see play any defense this year? Like seeing him come in and play basically every down at corner after midway through the second quarter.
I told you he's going to play in the dime.
Like that was. What did you think about his performance against Boston College?
I thought he played great. Like you couldn't have played, given the circumstances and the lack of experience, he couldn't have played better. And he made a couple tackles. He defended the deep ball. They hit a couple passes on him, but so what? I mean, that happens to everybody, especially their first time out. Certainly, he was a great player at Omaha North and a great athlete. Everybody knew that. He was a little under the radar as a recruit, but he showed on Saturday that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with next season. It was very encouraging. And
he's low maintenance too.
That's good. Yeah, and the son of an administrator and things like that. He knows how he's probably grown up a little quicker. But I don't know. I think they're going to be okay at corner. Sierra Wright, I assume Sierra Wright's coming back. He could go to the NFL. He's been in college for 4 years, but maybe they're going to give him.
He loves Nebraska, boy.
Good, and that's good. So he's going to come back, and Blight Hill gets a chance to be healthy, and and we'll see if he's. I think he's good enough to stick around, and I hope that he does. And then you have Donovan, and you have you've got the guys that are coming back that played corner like Buford and Hartzog. But you've also got some young guys like Jeremiah Charles. So, hopefully be back. And, some of these other guys will be ready to roll. And I think they're going to be fine in the secondary. Not, of course they're going to miss Isaac Gifford as a quarterback. And they're going to miss some of the things Deshaun Singleton was doing. But, I think they're going to be okay. I feel they're going to be okay on defense. They've got a lot of brain power on that side of the ball. And I think you put those minds together, Butler and Rule and Snow and Addison Williams, and Dvorak, you put all those guys together, and I think they're going to come up with a good defense. On offense, again, it feels like the pieces are going to be there. It just has to coalesce, and you do have to make sure that your offensive line is deep and experienced as experienced as it can be, especially at tackle.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, as you kind of look at, you said you like how the defense looks. Is there anywhere, I know a lot of people kind of look at that linebacker spot and say, maybe I'd like to see them get somebody out of the portal there. We mentioned those defensive tackle spots. Where would be, and then obviously you've got the offensive side of the ball as well. Where would be a place that you would, if you had to pick one position, you're like, hey, I'd really like them to get a guy here?
It looks like Nebraska still wants, to get a defensive lineman, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
They've gotten quite a few already, but I think they probably want to have as many as they can get. And yeah, I think a linebacker would be helpful to put next to Shavers. Again, I think they're going to have some young guys that are relatively ready to go. I'll be curious to see who those guys are in the spring. Dylan Rogers is a bigger guy who I'm intrigued to see what he can do if he gets that opportunity. And some of these other younger guys will just see what they have in store for them. Do they they have McCullough coming in from Oklahoma, and my presumption is that he was going to play the jack, but maybe he can do what Jaylen Lloyd does. Maybe he can play that position. And he's roughly the same height as Jaylen Lloyd. He's got more weight on him than Jaylen does. So maybe that's his position. And if that's so, then who's going to play the position? He's going to play the position. So I'll be curious to see we haven't had a chance to talk to Rule much about some of these additions. McCall is a big-time addition, and so is Williams Nwaneri. But I think we all know what Williams Nwaneri is going to do. He's gonna play defensive line, the Ty Robinson position, essentially. And so, we'll just have to see how it all shakes out. Again, I get the sense they're going to be okay on that side of the ball.
Sam, when you're taking a look at, do you think because I felt like Saturday was really misleading, and I take Coach Holgorsen at his word when, remember he told you guys a week ago, well, I'll worry about January, February, and December after the bowl game. I want to win the bowl game, right, in terms of how the offense is going to look. He literally changed game plans after seeing the conditions, right? It went to kind of this mesh, intermediate passing game with between the hashes when I think they started out thinking they could win outside the numbers, but quickly learned okay, this may be tough sledding. And he kind of just changed the game plan before our very eyes without us even really paying much attention to it. The fact that I think he can adapt with his Rolodex because of what he's done for so long, I think will be a huge advantage for making the pieces fit.
I agree. And in the Big Ten, you have to adapt.
I mean, it all of a sudden became a tight ends intermediate. It became a big kid game, right? Right before our very eyes.
And it became that without having, Dante Dowdell. So they didn't have the guy that they were using during the season in a Yankee Stadium wet field kind of game. We would have, if Dante Dowdell had that training, we would have seen him carry the ball 12 to 15 times.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't there. And so, they had to rely a little bit on Quentin Ives. But then, at the end of the game when it really mattered, the 4th down and 1, they give it to Ramir. And that would have been a Dante Dowdell play, a month ago. So
it's funny. I was so happy, Sam. It's for years I've said what a good inside runner I think Ramir is for not being very big.
He's fearless.
He's just and he finds those little creases.
Yeah. He hits the holes hard, and he's pretty fearless. He's always been really, really tough. And I appreciate that about him. He had an up and down career because of injuries, but if you put him behind Nebraska's offensive line in the 80s or the 90s, he would have had a hell of a career. He would have hit the seams hard, ran fast. He had injuries, and then Nebraska's offensive line maybe isn't quite what it was 30 years ago. But I thought he played really well. I actually thought Nebraska's offensive line played well. They had a good line this year. And so they're going to have to make sure they have as good of a line next year as they did this year. I thought Holgorsen adjusted really well. And there will be games next season where he can do all the things he wants to do because the weather complies, especially in August. There's going to be they play Michigan. It's probably going to be 85 degrees. It'll be late September, and it's 85 in late September in Nebraska. 85 and sunny. And he'll be able to do all the things that he wants to do. But then, you're going to get in these games late in the season. You're going to go to Penn State on November, whatever it is, and you're probably going to get the Yankee Stadium weather. And I say that because the last 2 times we've been to Penn State, they got the Yankee Stadium weather. And so, you're going to have to roll that game plan out because the weather's going to be awful. And you're going to have to figure out a way to move the football without doing all the things that you want to do. So, he'll have to adapt in the Big Ten. I'm going to put this out in a tweet probably later today. But you can look at the rushing yard totals of the Big Ten teams in the bowl games. And obviously Oregon played Ohio State, so it doesn't quite count there. But you can look at the rushing yard totals in the bowl games so far, and you're going to see that it's a line of scrimmage league. And you better be able to pack an offensive line and a defensive line and run the football, because a lot of the other teams in the league are running the heck out of the football in the bowl games. I mean, it's notable how much better and more physical they are up front than the opponents they're playing.
Sam, we do this a lot, and I think maybe this year probably more than any with the Big Ten and SEC perception being so heavy. But have the bowl game results surprised you in terms of how lopsided they have been?
Well, the two bowl game results on New Year's Eve with Michigan beating Alabama and Illinois beating South Carolina did surprise me. And, kudos to Sharon Moore for his team had juice. You could just see it. They look like they really wanted to be there.
It's apparently his personality. Like he revs pretty high.
Yeah, he coached a great game. He had them ready, and Alabama wasn't ready. Alabama's still probably the better team, but they didn't play like it for a long time in that game. So kudos to him. And then, I don't know. I think Bielema coached a good game against Beamer and all that stuff that happened. Bielema, a little bit of gamesmanship, and it worked. It worked. And I think it got in their head a little bit. And toward the end of the game, and, Beamer's a little younger, and I don't know. Bielema's done that stuff before. I mean, he's done there was a time when he was at Arkansas, and he got accidentally touched by an Alabama player, and he did the falling back. But he can do that sometimes, and you can't fall for it. And so I think those two results surprised me. Some of the lopsided results haven't surprised me. I got to be candid. I wasn't that surprised that Ohio State did that. I picked them to win the game. I think I picked them to win by 4. But I wasn't surprised they did that. I wasn't. When they want to play, when they're in that mode, and all the cylinders are hitting, they're the best team in the country. And the second best team is probably Texas. And what's interesting is that Texas kind of goes up and down in the middle of games. But, Texas can do all those things, and Ohio State can do them, and they're going to get to play each other. And if they both bring their A games, you're going to get a war. And it's going to be 28-27 kind of thing. So I was a little surprised that Texas kind of coughed up that lead. But, yeah, there hasn't been a lot of shockers. But, there are times when it feels like one team wants to be there, the other team doesn't want to be there. I don't know the story behind Colorado's effort against BYU. That was the night of the Pinstripe Bowl, so I didn't watch the game. So I can't speak to it other than I think BYU is a pretty good team. And you can't give a C effort against BYU and expect to win because they're a good team. So that's my thoughts on the Bulls so far.
It's interesting with Colorado, before I get to that Ohio State-Texas thing, because Colorado defensively, I was pretty impressed with all year, their level of physicality. Like, I thought that was a much tougher football team than, like, people would give them credit for. They could tackle. They got to where they needed to be. BYU just simply pushed them around. It was – I don't know. They just were tougher. Mm-hmm. They just were the more – But having said that, I'm surprised. So Texas doesn't – I take that back. I'm not surprised on your sentiment on Texas because Texas' defensive line can control any game I think they put their mind to. They are that good up front. The thing that's interesting to them is with as talented as these two teams are, for some reason I still think it boils down to their interest level. When Ohio State is engaged and kind of in the moment, they're obviously extremely talented. Same as when Texas is dialed in, they're pretty good too. It's just with Texas, they always have this quarter or two where it's like, I think they'd rather be someplace else. And they did it against Georgia. Like they were in control of that game. And then all of a sudden they start dinking around.
They dial out mid-game more than any good team I think I've ever seen. It's
just
wild.
It's just interesting how they approach it.
Well, I'm not inside that program, so it would be hard for me to gauge. But I agree with you. I think that a couple dynamics that are at play there is that their head coach deep down wants to throw the ball. And it's maybe as good a play caller and play designer as there is. But the advantage that they have in the trenches and try to throw it, that's one thing. And then the other thing I think is that they're I don't know that the team is really sold on the starting quarterback, which is weird because he's pretty good. He's not like terrible.
Well, he has his moments where he looks incredible.
Yeah. And Alabama, once upon a time, had a situation where Jalen Hurts was the quarterback and Tua was the backup. And that stuff happens. So I think there's things about that team that are just not quite. But offensive and defensive line, Texas is awesome, and they will have an opportunity to play in front of a partisan crowd at Cowboys Stadium. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll see who wins today. Obviously, a tragedy in New Orleans. We're all praying for the folks down there.
Incredible.
Horrible. It's just horrible. But we'll see who wins today. I had picked Notre Dame to win by 1 in a low-scoring game. And so if your other semifinal is Penn State Notre Dame, that's going to be a battle in the trenches as well. So I'm looking forward to whatever the results are and whoever the teams are that make the semifinals. I think it's been a good semifinal. And back to Colorado for a second. Most NFL teams that are going to fire their head coaches will do so either Monday or Tuesday of next week. Will Deion Sanders be a candidate for an NFL job?
Interesting.
Yes, I think he will be.
You think so?
I do. I do. Yes.
I don't know,
I think
man.
somebody's going to take a chance on it. I don't know if he's going to get a job, but I do think he'll get an interview.
Yeah.
And there are going to be a number of teams that are looking for an NFL head coach, and I think Sanders will not be closed off to the possibility of doing it. And I predict he'll get an interview. Whether he gets hired or not, I don't know. But remember, it took Jim Harbaugh a couple of years to get back into the NFL when he started, flirting with it. And this most recent time when he was at Michigan, it took him a couple of years, but he got a few interviews before that. And with the exception of Vikings, I'm guessing the teams that interviewed him and didn't hire him are kicking themselves because he's a pretty good NFL head coach.
That's Sam McKewon, Omaha World Herald. Sam, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. What's up, DB? You lost? What happened?
My deal came off the
little.
But now that it's been on the floor, apparently,
are you
I'm not
sure you want to put it by your mouth again?
Well, it doesn't normally touch it. I guess I'm just more curious about how it could just disappear.
Yeah, that's
but it is black, so it may just fade
it probably
to the
blends
floor.
in with the black floor here. Oh, I think it's over by me.
Don't touch it. It's fine.
Oh, he touched it.
Are my fingers dirtier than the floor, DB? Like, what's the problem here?
Depends. Depends. It's not ask me again.
It's
fine.
Doing all right over there?
Yep.
We were having an interesting conversation off air and with Sam a little bit there about some of these college football playoff teams. I kind of mentioned this with Sam. I can't believe how bad Texas is capable of looking.
Yeah.
For being how good they are.
No, 100%.
It's unreal.
I said it for, 15 weeks. Like, I think Texas is pretty good.
Yes. When they decide to play.
So the cool thing about one of my kids' evolution is he now watches games vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So he'll say things like, this part he's kind of always been like, but he's like, oh, man, like he's really good against cover 2. He likes balls in the seam or, Texas converted that fourth down.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, that's cover 2. That you have no business throwing that ball. Great throw, great catch for the 7-yard gain or whatever it was. But,
yeah,
like, if you're a squatted corner, you can't give that up.
Right.
So he'll say things like that. But then conversely, he now watches other things, right? Not just the back end. He'll say, hey, look at the get off of this D line. He'll say, pause that.
Yeah.
Right. And there were about 6 times yesterday where you would watch Texas's D line.
Yep.
Already in their fit by the time Leavitt would even just go to 45 to hand the ball back.
Yep.
Is incredible. So when I watch them play, it's like this. I've seen this before. They're very capable of doing this. Now they don't do it all the time, which is weird. But on the same vein, and I told you this off air, like I'm a nerd, right? Obviously. So I'm like, yeah, I love Jeremiah Smith. He's a great talent. There's no question. He shouldn't be running that wide open, though.
Right. Yeah.
He makes these great catches. He can make great contested catches.
Mm-hmm.
But he also runs free quite a bit.
A lot.
So does he have the body? Is he like – is it going to be like Chase where he has one of those frames where I don't think he's going to run away from you. He's just going to make tough catches and be good after the catch? Maybe. But Oregon was not good in a couple of places that I told you I was worried about. I never loved their offensive line, and they fall asleep on the back end.
Which is dangerous.
Okay? They fell asleep on the back end a ton yesterday.
Yep.
And their offensive line got whipped.
How many guys were just running free? Not just Smith.
Whipped. So it's like, right. So I'm thinking to myself, is Ohio State's are they that offensive line? Because I can't unsee it. I can't unsee it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like I'm looking at play designs. Like, do I trust Howard?
That's the thing. Like, do I trust Howard?
Well, probably more than I trust yours, but
yes,
because I just hate Texas against like competition.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like
I do.
I don't know.
Well, and here's the weird, and Sam kind of alluded to this too. Here's the weird thing about yours is there's probably people in that locker room that don't think he should be the starting quarterback.
You think?
I do.
I don't know.
I do think that.
Well, he makes some plays now.
He does. He also has some Quinn Ewers moments. I don't know what else to call him.
Even last year in the playoffs, for as bad as he was in stretches.
Oh, he can. There's a little.
My man started cooking to get Texas back into that one against Washington.
There's a little Carson Beck there.
Yeah.
Like midseason Carson Beck where he's struggling, but then he just goes off and you're like, where did that come from? There's a little bit of that there, but I mean, Will Howard's more consistent for sure. Even though he's probably not as gifted of a thrower of the football as Quinn Ewers is, you probably trust him a little bit more. He gives you a little bit more with his feet, obviously, than Ewers does. But when it all comes down to it, all else being equal, Texas's lulls are so bad. Not just in frequency, but like the depth to which they sink is lower than the Ohio State lulls. I think Ohio State's lulls are fewer and less dramatic than Texas's. Texas, when they play bad, they're bad. I mean, they self-destruct almost.
We saw it yesterday.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like they were beating the brakes off of Arizona State, and they should have continued to just boat race them. They totally fell asleep at the wheel, and then by the time Arizona State was back in it, it wasn't just that they were letting them back in it. It was that they were actively helping Arizona State get back in it. So it's not just that they're not making plays. They're actively making plays for the other team at a certain point. And that's something Ohio State doesn't really do.
Yeah, I think – so there's two things. Like if you're getting the game inside the game, I think Texas is going to have to mix up coverages on the back end. Right? Oregon was I mean, they – just the inability to want to get out of either two or man, you got to do a little more, right? You can't have deep hole guys running with guys vertically up the slot. Not against these guys.
Yeah.
Right? You just can't.
They're too good.
And it's funny too, because like we were saying, I was saying this to myself, and I forget I'm actually watching with Caleb, and he's like, yeah, they got us on a couple of those cover two beaters too.
Yeah.
And I was like, shoot, that's right. Those are the ones that I put on Twitter.
Yeah.
Where they went back and forth between trying to play it 3 deep versus
and that miscommunication.
Yeah.
When they're passing off
when
Smith.
they turned Smith free.
And it wasn't just that he ran by everybody, it's that somebody didn't go with him.
And so I'm like, can they diversify on the back end? Because that D line can win against Ohio State's offensive line.
100%.
Like
that D line can win against anybody.
I don't have any qualms saying that. Like you're not going to be able to just turn and run toss against Texas because those DBs support in the run game.
Yeah.
Right. Like they're very physical in the run game. So I don't know. I think is the line out yet? I imagine Ohio State would be like a 6-7 point favorite, and it's going to be too much. It's going to be too big.
You think the number is going to be too big?
Yeah, I would make Ohio State like a 2.5 point fave.
It is -6. Ohio State -6.
It's too much. That's too much.
Yeah, I think people are overreacting.
It's out already?
Yeah. I mean, we're a week out, basically.
I knew. I'm like,
you said 6-7
because they whipped Oregon.
Yeah, and people think obviously more highly of Oregon than they do of Arizona State.
And they whipped Tennessee.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? It's like 83 to 43 or 38 or something.
That's too much.
That's a big number.
Texas can win, so the points are a gift. You're getting more than that's too much.
I do think Ohio State should be favored.
No, I agree.
They're playing better right now, but I think I think the number is an overreaction to what we saw on what was that day? Friday, Tuesday, whatever day it was. Yesterday? Was that yesterday?
If Texas is not hard-headed.
Yeah.
Like, go back to your mesh concepts. You don't have to get vertical outside the numbers.
Can Sarkisian help himself?
That's the thing.
That's the $1 million question, right?
That's the thing, because the best unit on the field in that game will be Texas's D-line.
Yeah.
The next best unit will be Ohio State's wide receiving core.
Yes. Agreed. I agree.
So listen, I'm not going to die on that hill if you wanted to make Ohio State's wide receivers 1 and go 1A.
Yeah.
But the ability to impact the game gives the advantage to a D-line.
Yeah.
The closer you are to the ball,
the more impactful.
The more impactful you can be.
Who are you taking over in Texas's secondary or Ohio State's secondary?
I don't love Ohio State's corners. I like Downs as a safety.
Right.
I like both their safeties, actually. Probably Texas, but I don't love that.
You think it's pretty close?
Yes.
Just different areas of strength.
Yep.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. As we effort Brian Edwards here to get some picks.
Might be some miscommunication.
Yeah, it's first day back. We got to work out the kinks a little bit here. We'll work on that. But if we don't get a hold of him, I did want to talk about. We haven't talked much about Notre Dame and Georgia tonight. That's one where I'm still confused as to
Tevin Campbell.
No.
I'm so confused about the way I feel. I used to be a big Tevin Campbell guy.
I don't even recognize what we're doing.
A huge Tevin Campbell guy.
You could have told me that Tevin Campbell was
we talk
defensive back
for a minute
for Kansas State in the 90s.
I used to be in love with this girl from Waterloo, same place Tevin Campbell was from.
Yeah.
And she turned out to be certifiable.
Like Tevin Campbell?
Listen, how many African American women do you know that turn out to be goth?
Goth?
Yes.
Oh, 0.
Okay. Yeah.
Not a 1.
That's what happened. Overtime.
That's a move. That's a direction to go.
Yeah. She married a guy that looked just like me too.
Yeah?
Yeah, he used to tell people he was me around town and get me in trouble.
That's weird. That's super weird.
God is my witness.
That's really strange.
Yeah, I found him.
Yeah.
She sounds pretty cool.
Had some speaks about it.
This is back when 24-hour fitness was a thing over on Cass. Or on Maple.
Yeah.
That's how long ago this was.
Yeah.
Say, man, you go knock this off.
Yeah. That's weird.
Man, listen.
That's super strange.
Anyway. Yeah, she was incredible. But
I don't know what to do with this line.
So,
because it switched finally.
So who's
Notre Dame's now the favorite.
Okay.
-1.
That's fine.
It had been Georgia -1.5. It was started -2, I think, then -1.5, then -1. And they knew Carson Beck wasn't going to play this whole time.
Yeah.
It's finally switched to Notre Dame -1. And first of all, I don't really nothing.
TK's a degenerate. He's like, the line was out 5 minutes after the game. I'm like I care. I don't look. First of all, full disclosure.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I remotely even know what I'm doing is because I don't. The job is to beat the close line.
Yeah. Not the opening line.
So sorry, TK. Well, at least I did guess right.
Well, and some of those immediate lines are not
Yeah.
as reputable as some of the ones that come out a little bit later. But I don't know what's changed. I'm guessing, public money.
Perception.
But in terms of the actual matchup, nothing's changed from when this came out, and it's basically flipped 3 points to Notre Dame's favor at this point. I thought Notre Dame should have been favored the whole time. I couldn't believe Georgia was favored.
See, I don't agree with you.
Could not believe Georgia was favored without Carson Beck.
Now, Georgia's going to have their mettle tested, though.
Yeah.
And it's not at the quarterback spot. It's to play against a team that will try to match them in physicality.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame's not going to waver.
Not at all. That is a resolute team. If you want to talk about cohesiveness and chemistry and things like that.
And if their backfield is healthy, and I assume they both feel good.
Yeah.
Because you have had a little extra time. That downhill running games is tough, and they're going to have to account for a mobile quarterback.
Yes.
Now, I'll say this, and you saw Coach Holgorsen do this.
Mm-hmm.
BC made the choice to play man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't even match it. They played man. And so they were trailing and chasing routes all night.
Yep.
And Dylan made them pay most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Georgia can play some man. They can't play two-man because two-man doesn't really account for a mobile quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You could maybe ice it outside, or
When you say ice it outside, what do you mean?
so it's a term where you're gonna everybody's in zone except for the corners on the outside.
Okay. So the corners are playing man on the outside.
Yes.
And then everybody else in the interior of the field is playing zone.
with true number one.
So you've got guys with their eyes on the quarterback,
right?
So they can.
So you can do that, but Leonard can hurt you.
Yep.
But I would, outside of Faison, I don't know if Notre Dame can get open outside the numbers.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So you have to watch 6. He's by far their most dynamic, in my opinion, especially after the catch.
How much does?
So can Georgia neutralize the quarterback run game?
So that's my question: is how much does Leonard's ability to keep eyes in the backfield?
Well, they can't
help.
They can't play with a true free. So you can't play with you don't have a free.
Yeah.
Like you have to account for Leonard.
So how much?
What will they play around it? I don't know.
Yeah. So how much does that help Notre Dame win on the outside?
If they can.
Well, that's what I mean. Does that help them be able to win on the outside? That fact that Georgia has to keep eyes in the backfield.
I don't know. I mean, Georgia likes man-to-man anyway. So
if they're running man-to-man all day, though, that gives Riley Leonard an opportunity to just run wild.
That's why I don't think you can. So maybe they'll match it. Maybe they could play like quarters and fit in the run game out of it. But you have to win at the point of attack because Georgia has a corner, and it's Golden, so he's going to cook a lot of guys, which by the way, I don't know how he ended up where he started, but I do know he belongs at Texas. Apparently Houston can recruit.
Oh, yeah. Houston is sort of the UCF of Texas.
You know who that really is, though?
Who?
Right down the road from them. It's SMU.
Now. Yes.
SMU. Speaking of Jaylen Lloyd, very viable option.
SMU
but anyway, so
is a little better than Houston, I think. But Houston is really good at getting the guys that get overlooked by Texas and A&M.
And Georgia struggled with Golden. Because they just went at him, and it turned out to be my guy's better than your guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if Notre Dame has that guy. I don't.
But
I go back and watch
Notre Dame.
I go back and watch Milroe and Alabama against Georgia, and I'm like, I can't really comp it because there is no Williams.
Right.
And he got busy.
Right. So it's how much of Milroe's success had to do with Williams on the outside, keeping Georgia honest, versus how much of that was just them struggling in a man-to-man scheme against a mobile quarterback. But
the thing about it is,
if you're going Texas versus Georgia,
Leonard won't run away from Georgia.
No.
But he can more than hurt you.
Yes. He's more of – this is a weird – he's more of like a Tebow runner, like he's going to get 8 yards, not a Milrow going to gash you for 60 most of the time, right? He's more of a running back type running quarterback.
It's a fascinating matchup.
It really is, because
I would not have made Notre Dame the favorite, though.
Notre Dame's going to win this game.
I would not have made them the favorite.
Notre Dame will win this football game. I know we're not in bet on it yet, but Notre Dame's winning this game.
I've talked you into Notre Dame all year.
I mean, yes,
I've talked you into Notre Dame all year.
You have, but like I really like how they're playing right now.
So this is the one thing you have to kind of be careful of.
Mm-hmm.
They are not super fleet of foot.
Yep, I agree. Especially,
so they're gonna have to really.
They're gonna have to make it a game in a phone booth.
Now they do have a good secondary, though.
Yes, that's the thing that saves me in this situation. I think
you like Notre Dame secondary against unproven wideouts.
I like Notre Dame secondary against almost everybody. I especially like them against Georgia and a backup quarterback. Notre Dame secondary is really, really good. I will put them up against just about anybody.
Yeah,
and between that. And I think Notre Dame's going to be able to control the clock with their run game between Love and Leonard. Like,
Love's pretty sweet, isn't he?
Dude, he's really good.
And he flies under the radar because he shares.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
But with their running game and their willingness, like, I don't think Notre Dame has this burning desire the way Texas does to air the ball out. Right? That's the difference between like a Texas and a Notre Dame for me, is Notre Dame can run the football and will run the football. Like, they're totally okay winning ugly against you, I think. And I don't know that Texas is okay winning ugly.
I don't know, man.
Notre Dame's win this game. I'm convinced of it.
We call that a cliffhanger. I'll save it for.
We'll save for bet on it.
But the other thing is are you? How glad do you think? So you clearly think this is going to be a close game.
Not as close as the line, but yeah.
How excited were you that we didn't have a Toledo situation with overtime? Yes.
With Texas and Arizona State. I was wondering. I was like, man, do they need to change that for the playoff?
Yes.
Like, do they need to make it more like real overtime? Because like that's a crappy way to end a playoff game.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Because I love it in Toledo Pitt. Love it.
Oh yeah, I love it in Penn State, Illinois.
Yeah, it's incredible, right?
Right.
Like regular season, random bowl game. I'm like, this is the best, right? I have no reason to be as dialed into Toledo Pitt as I am.
How many years ago was that Penn State, Illinois?
Just a couple. It wasn't that long ago.
I don't know, man. I get all my years confused.
I do too, honestly. I think it was Illinois' last good season, so 2 years ago.
I don't want to see the Toledo.
I don't. Not in a playoff. I don't want to see a playoff game decided that way.
And it was crazy, too, because once Texas got the 2-point conversion yesterday, it's like, oh, this one's over.
Yeah, it really
like
felt
that's how I felt.
I did, too. Like, it felt damning in a weird way.
I'm like, not only do they have to score a touchdown, and they got to get the 2-point.
I mean, honestly, as soon as Texas got the 4th and 13, I was like, that's probably a wrap.
Really?
Yeah, we're gonna wrap that one up. Think we're done here. Huh. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla, more Hurrdat Sports Radio with Michael Bruntz coming up next. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, Campbell, and Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Michael Bruntz, our friend from Husker 24/7. Bruntz, happy belated birthday. How are you?
Not bad. Happy New Year. How you guys doing?
Good. Bruntz, do you like your middle name?
It's okay.
What is your middle name?
I didn't know if you were going to ask the follow-up or not.
Yes.
It's Allen.
I knew it. I was going to change it, though. But now that...
Change my middle name?
Yeah, I was going to say, and now Michael, Bruntz. But...
Okay.
Yeah, Michael Allen said that you look and act like a Michael Allen. That fits. It's very
It's a family name, so I walked into it. So yeah.
I didn't have a chance to ask you because you were on the phone so long, but I did a play.
Sorry about that, by the way.
I did a reenactment for Ravi.
Yeah.
I said, I'm like, man, I said, Bruntz is kind of surprising. He's like, what? They go, this guy did basically, I assume it was something important. I'm going to say interview in a catcher-esque position as if to simulate a wall sit. Right? You're like backs against the wall. You're in the squatted catcher position, and you seem to be enjoying the conversation. So I was like, I'm like, that's weird. That's a weird way to sit. Like, why doesn't he just go sit down or stand up? Like, why that? Like, and I was like, oh, maybe he's stretching. I was going to go mind my own business. I come back about 7-8 minutes later, and you're still in the same position. Like, was that comfortable to you?
I don't know. I was doing the.
Did it dawn on you that you were sitting like that?
Well, I was aware that I was sitting like that.
Were you just getting a mini workout in, or
you gotta get the quads loosened up. I don't know if you have to do this, but at some point before, on a road trip weekend, you've got to check in, usually in like morning of the second day, again with the kids to make sure that they're listening to mom back at home. So that was more of a. I was.
You were locked in.
It was not an interview. Well, it was kind of like it was more of an interrogation. I think is what it was.
It's just one of those things where, because I would have seen you the next time, and you have never known like the weird things that go through my mind that I actually don't say out loud. But that was one of them. I'm like, I wonder if I could do that for that long. Or was he so enthralled by what was being said, he didn't realize how uncomfortable that looks?
Yeah, no, I was dialed in on the conversation, and
that was spectacular.
Some pointed questions being asked. So that was what you saw. That was an interview of a different kind. Yeah.
Isn't it weird? Every time I talk to you after seeing you over the weekend, I come back with some dumb Bruntz story, and you're like, wow, and you guys pay him to make these kind of observations. Yeah, Bruntz, that's what I do. Hey, so speaking of observations, I didn't get a chance to ask you, did you go on the field before the game started?
They wouldn't let us.
Oh, it was ridiculous. Ridiculous. I had to beg. Literally, like, beg.
I got there. So you got down to like the regular area, or like the concourse area on the field level.
Oh yeah.
And then there's a guy at the door that would have led to. It's the door that like led to the visitors.
The light skinned guy or the black guy with the bald guy with the glasses.
The first guy.
Yeah, the mean one.
But he goes, let me see your credential. And I showed it to him. He goes, okay, come on through. And no joke, I got like 40 feet down the concourse and got, hey, you, buddy. And he's like, you can't be down here. So I think if I would have walked more quickly, I might have gotten down there. But
you look like a tourist?
Yeah. It was like, this guy obviously should not be anywhere near this area. So yeah, that's as close as I got. And even after the game, they weren't letting people out there.
Nope.
Like it was like you could not go anywhere near there. And there were a couple other rules for like post game interviews that I thought were very. I don't know why, but apparently the club there prefers that if people are interviewed in the concourse, that a brick wall be on, like they be standing against a brick wall. Like that was very clear to us.
Hey, I listened to the BC radio team literally cuss that stadium staff out. If you've ever heard a Bostonian and a New Yorker just go back and forth, I mean, the dump button would have broken. And the walk-off, though, was the BC guy was like, hey, let's not blankety-blank effing act like this is Fenway. This isn't effing Fenway. You make it seem like this is Fort Knox.
Yeah.
I was in tears, Bruntz. I was like, oh my gosh.
It was. I think it's fair to say that security was tight for that game on Saturday.
And
it was very tight.
And thank goodness we have Jessica, because they probably like, well, who are these two other ugly guys? And then they see her, and she's like, it's 7 o'clock in that stadium, Bruntz.
I know. Well,
no, it's 6:20 because the bus left at 6, and it's dark, and there's a guy there, and listen, we're scared to death because the whole credential thing was a debacle, and so she has the stone. She asked this guy, she's like, hey, do you know how to get to the press box? And he's like, here, I'll open it up for you, and he used his scan card, and listen, it was fortuitous that we even found the guy. Right? And I looked at Benny Mack, and he looked at me, and he goes, there's no way we're getting that done. And he looked at, and he's super funny. He's like, especially you, DB. I was like, what do you mean? Because I'm under 6 foot? What? Yeah, it was. So I was going to say about the field, I was shocked. I was captivated by the diligence that they were using to clean it. And I was like, wow, they're very protective. But then when I went out there to do the pregame hit, it was a disaster. I couldn't believe how well the field held up given the conditions.
Yeah, no, it was. There was high potential for that thing to be like a grass horse track by halftime, and I can't imagine that the grounds crew there loved having to work in those conditions, basically have 300-pound guys running around and sopping wet grass in cleats for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, they didn't even want Nebraska to wheel out the equipment. They did it.
Oh, did they?
Oh yeah, and Jay Terry is not to be messed with either. So that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they got it done. I have to say that. It was fun. It was even the open air thing. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was not cold during the game, and so that was fine. But I don't know. I feel like Nebraska's done that now, and we can maybe not do that again for a while.
not trying to return to the Pinstripe Bowl again, Bruntz.
A couple of years off would be okay, I think. Let's let the bowls reset, see where we go.
And the committee was fantastic. They were very the Pinstripe. They were great. It's just the folks around the stadium, man. It is totally beneath them to do a college event.
Did you get any bowl swag, DB? For a media thing? Did you get anything?
No. Well, yes. I don't know if it was considered because I was media. I don't know. Maybe just a hanger honor.
What'd you get?
Oh, it's a quarter zip, but it actually says Pinstripe Bowl, so there's not a chance that's going to be one.
So
it's a big one on the left shoulder too.
They didn't give you the full Yankees jersey with the number on the back, but they're just like, hey, we got some quarter zips for you.
Yeah,
there you go.
I wanted
number 21.
I would have sold that Yankees jersey to the highest $4 bidder. I would not wear anything Pinstripe. And they were so the guy that ended up being cool to let us in. Actually, he let Jess in. I was joking with him. I said, "There's only one real team." I said, "This Manhattan stuff sucks. It's this is Brooklyn, and that team's now in L.A." I said, "Are you guys cool with that?" He looked at me like he just as soon rather have thrown me over the balcony than joke with that. But it's 6:30, man. What else are you going to joke about other than having to be there so early? It's Brooklyn.
I like that they had Randy Levine up front before the game talking about the bowl. I was half expecting a couple fastball questions from somebody about Major League free agency or something. I was a little disappointed that it didn't happen. But
how about that lifetime contract for the guy that moved down the street? You guys cool with that? I was childish.
Easier to get into Citi Field over there.
I did run down because there were a lot of Nebraska fans along what I now call Mookie Betts' wall. So I was very childish.
Why you gotta be like that?
I went down there and touched that thing. It's like, oh, that's where you guys harass Mookie. So Bruntz, you're looking at how this game was played. It was interesting to see how Nebraska's game plan, their philosophy changed. I think it changed once they figured out how that field was actually going to play. It turned into a kind of a grudgy intermediate mesh concept passing game with big kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was after a couple deep shots, it was pretty clear that the footing was not great. And they adapted to their credit. Found some things that worked. I think but there was the kind of like comeback route that Banks ran where it felt like the ball was in the air for about 30 seconds.
About as long as it took him to get out of that break, right?
Yes.
It was just very
like
touchy.
slow motion.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it was, I thought Nebraska adapted. I was wondering, I haven't kind of thought through this a ton, but even like going for that fourth down, that felt new to me. Like the aggression, obviously the special teams issues being what they are probably push that, but there didn't seem to be much hesitation there that they were going to go for that. I like the routes to the backs and, kind of making BC's guys cover, in traffic and with the field conditions and everything else. I thought it was pretty smart. So, those routes seemed to be missing for a lot of the year, and it felt like you had guys that could probably run those pretty well. So it was good to see those in there. But I don't know. I mean, as tense as it kind of got late, I mean, it didn't really feel like Nebraska was ever really in any kind of danger for, 3 quarters of not being in control of that game. So, I thought for the most part, Nebraska played pretty well, all things considered. I mean, I just don't know, going forward with opt-outs and guys hitting the portal and everything else, it just feels like a lot of those bowl games are just going to be absolute crapshoots for how teams come into it mentally and, what they're able to actually get done on the field just because you have so many moving pieces.
Yeah, I was watching. I text a couple of my buddies that always want my opinion on things, and I always tell them tread lightly when it's Nebraska. But about 30 minutes after being on the field with both teams, I text a couple guys. I was like, Nebraska by 1,000, and for a while I was like, see, man, these guys ought to do something nice for me. And then I was like, oh gosh,
when it's 20-2.
And then I have to start standing up to do the broadcast. I'm like, are they really going to do this? Are they really going to do this? Like because to your point, Bruntz, why it got dicey for a second and you probably still felt good is because Boston College at no point looked like they could control the line of scrimmage.
No, well,
that part surprised me a little bit because I liked BC up front on film.
Yeah, even the big gainers that they got were like throws that they were like kind of tip your cap throws that like they were completing. And then they had the big screen where Nebraska basically, had 6 guys that could have brought the guy down and didn't. So yeah, I didn't ever feel like Boston College was going to just start driving it on Nebraska. Like it was going to be one of those, like if they were going to do anything offensively, it was going to be like, we're going to hit a couple passes that, you're likely going to complete like 2 out of 10 times, or a guy's just going to miss an interception or a tip or something like that. I mean, there were 3 or 4 plays in that game where like a guy's just right there to tip a ball, intercept it, whatever, and just didn't do it. So the offensive success that they had, it felt a little bit flukier than anything. So, which can kind of be scary whenever you have the momentum kind of shift the way it did at the end. But I think I don't know what 3.5 quarters of that game felt like it was pretty just calm.
Yeah, you were like, as long as Nebraska didn't have a DB slip or miss, their tackling out of the secondary was not great. But as long as that didn't happen, it was like, well, how's BC going to score?
Yeah, but that same thread though, like, when you get stuff blocked and you have the special teams gaps and everything else, like you're kind of almost expecting somebody to slip at that point, right? Like you're kind of inviting that possibility creeping into the back of your mind a little bit.
We're talking with Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. Bruntz, when you're looking at the first opportunity we had to see a John Butler defense as defensive coordinator. Do you feel like you learned anything from that, or because you feel like the personnel is going to be so different next year, you don't think you can take too much away from it?
Well, I think you can take away. I mean, it's noteworthy the way he adapted to the fact that you had so much personnel change. I mean, you had a freshman in there that played 50-some snaps at corner. That was pretty cool.
He's going to be he likes pressure. That was evident.
Yeah, no, I think. Well, he had some comment. I forget if it was during the bowl press conferences or when it was, but it was kind of about his level of aggression and kind of how he's going to call things. And he wasn't playing bend don't break. I mean, he was going to force the issue, and I think it's a matter of kind of finding guys that can put their hand in the ground and go get the quarterback themselves. I think they'll have some guys that can do that on the roster next year, but no, I thought defense. I was more intrigued by kind of what the defense was going to be in that game because of, you had young guys in really big roles. The defensive line was going to look completely different aside from Ty and Nash, and I thought he held everything together pretty well. Like if you knew nothing and said like, okay, there's somebody completely different calling this defense. I mean, there were things here and there that were different that you kind of noticed, but it didn't really feel all that different to me.
Bruntz, out of some of the guys that you mentioned, Donovan Jones playing 50-plus snaps at corner. Obviously, we saw and knew sort of what Vincent Shavers and Riley Van Poppel can do. Was there a guy that we hadn't seen a ton of this year that stood out to you as being particularly impressive?
There were a few flash plays I thought from Keona Davis in that game. I mean, I think you can see why he was a guy that, they're really high on towards the end of the season, that they wanted to get back out of the portal. I mean, I know there was probably a little less drama there than what there seemed to be from the outside, but, I think he's got a really bright future. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, you saw when you look up and Jordan Ochoa's in the game, as a walk-on. I mean, that Nebraska was able to get some things done with some guys that had not been relied upon at all this season, and I think that's pretty impressive. I don't know, and I know you mentioned Shavers, and I think he's kind of been a known commodity, but you talk to him, I mean, and you can see where there's a jump to be made next year, like another level that he can go to. I mean, he's a confident kid. He's got a little bit of swagger to him, and he can back it up on the field too. I mean, I'm very curious to see how he looks in the middle of that defense next year, but also, how does that attitude kind of, go with the rest of the defense? I mean, is that going to be a group that's going to play with a little bit of swagger? Because I think they had that at times this year, but I mean, when you've got a guy in the middle of that defense that's not afraid to talk a little bit.
You got 4 or 5 of those young guys that are all kind of like that too, that play with a tremendous amount of confidence just because of their high school success too. Like I that's a sneaky good point, Bruntz, because you're spot on that those guys play with like a winning attitude. Yeah.
I mean, you're 13 games into it, but by the time you get to New York, but I mean, it didn't seem like guys were playing scared. And I think that's a good sign going into next season when a lot of those guys are going to have, pretty big roles. Because I don't know. I mean, from the recruiting class this year, I mean, I don't know that there's a ton of just plug and play guys right now.
I agree.
And so it's going to be a lot of that 24 class that's going to have to, really kind of step up and be counted on.
It actually forced me to revisit how I felt about Pro Football Focus grades too, Bruntz, which I don't love, but I was like, well, do I want to be objective or do I not? Nah, let's not be objective in this one. It's a great grade. Bruntz, let me ask.
You only use that for things you can count. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I can do.
God bless you, Bruntz. Michael Allen. So the way that Nebraska's used the portal, and I was telling Ravi, Bruntz, it was so stressful for some of the staff that weren't doing anything with bowl preparation, even though they should be. They were working the portal, right? And you see what Nebraska's been able to do so far. Do you feel better or worse as this thing's kind of winding down? And they got a couple more guys that are still on the hook, but with how Nebraska utilized the portal versus what kind of program they want to be?
Yeah, I feel okay about it. I feel a lot better if you get a tackle or two.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of maybe a linebacker. That would be the other one. But yeah, I mean, I think, it's one thing when you kind of have coaches coming in and there's guys that are maybe inclined to be coached by those guys at a new destination. I think that helps you. I mean, when you can add production like that, like Nebraska did at the wide receiver spot, that's huge. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because for Nebraska this year, tackle's a big one, offensive tackle's a big need, but it just felt like it was like, okay, we need a guy or two at this spot, a guy or two at this spot. Like it was kind of more just across the board with adding a little bit of production to bridge things. And I think they did a pretty good job of it to this point. I mean, I think adding the backup quarterback, another quarterback to that group was really important. I don't know that people understand just like how much work is on those staffers over there. Like you had 2,700 transfers in the portal in this little window, and like to have to go through those guys and watch film and like figure out if the guy's a fit, and you're basically doing like 72-hour recruitment at that point. Like calling it speed dating probably isn't even fair. It's tough to do, and I think they went in with kind of what they needed to target, and I think they were able to hit on a pretty high level for those needs.
That's Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. Bruntz, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Bruntsy.
All right, see you guys. Yep.
That's Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. That's DB. I'm Ravi. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln, here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. Before we get to Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, let's get to our friend Cody on the Hurrdat Hotline. Let's talk a little college football playoffs. What's going on, Cody?
What's going on, gentlemen? I just want to call in, say, good Happy New Year, Merry Christmas.
Happy
Appreciate
New Year,
it, Cody.
buddy. How we feeling?
Really good. Tyson Terry hasn't lost a single thing.
Yeah, it's good to see him back this week. Cleared. He's gonna be in even better shape as the season goes on.
Oh yeah. So with this college football playoff, what are your thoughts on kind of the seeding issue going forward? Is it something that they will adapt to, this year, or do they need a couple of years where, what I'm talking about with the whole 1 through 4 seeds going to champs, and then like how we had Oregon, Ohio State, or kind of do you think it's just a 1 year off this year that it just happened to work out that way?
Boy, that's anecdotally, it definitely does not fit.
I think they'll change it for next year.
They have to.
Yeah.
Because I think the biggest gripe was not necessarily 13, 14, and 15. It was how you did the seedings.
Yeah. The best 4 teams didn't get the buys.
But I don't know how you guys want to do strength of schedule then either, because strength of schedule is kind of fictitious.
Especially in some of these conferences.
It's kind of fictitious unless you don't do preseason rankings.
Exactly. And all the conferences have to play the same amount of conference games, I think, if you go to that.
Well, you've listened to me for that was my number 1A gripe about expanding the playoffs without any uniformity. And it's even more exposed now more than ever.
Yeah. I'll let you guys get going on one more question. Who's had a better past month, the Mets or the Snakes?
It's not the Mets. I'm going to go with the Snakes.
Corbin Burns?
Yeah.
Over Juan Soto?
Yeah. Because Arizona's – they both are built to win now.
Yeah.
But Arizona's not compromised.
Yeah, with the contract. Also, Arizona was in the World Series 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and they were young then.
I'm deathly afraid of that acquisition. So we spent. This is crazy. I bet you during off air in that broadcast, because you're with three baseball honks, right?
Yeah.
With me, Benny Mack, and Lane. And Lane knows Burns as well as anybody, and certainly better than anyone in that booth.
Yeah.
That was the last place I wanted to see him go.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was really hoping.
Stay out of the NL West.
I was really hoping the Red Sox would go and get him, even though
you guys got a steal with Bueller.
They did. I was happy with the Crochet was a good addition, good trade. I was hoping they'd still go get Burns, but Walker Buehler was a good flyer, like a 1 year. That was a good flyer for sure.
I think so. Yeah.
So I was pleased with that, but I still want.
I only had 3 days of him, but I gave him a ride home after the trip.
Yeah,
because he flew out of Omaha. That dude is still the funniest dude in America.
Like, are you gonna punch me in the face?
I mean, he had some
big Benny Matt guy
doozies.
You're on an island by yourself there, my friend.
That totally fit your whole Christmas right there, didn't it?
Yes,
You're on an island by yourself there, my friend.
He is.
That's where DB lives, on an island by himself.
Yep. With the misfit toys.
Let's get to Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place to place your sports bets in Nebraska. You can go to the casino in Lincoln or in Omaha and get after it at warhorsecasino.com as well. We were talking about this line earlier. Notre Dame -1 over Georgia tonight.
I'm going to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
The line fits my – because clearly I have a thing that I look for. It fits that you would take Notre Dame.
Yeah.
It 1,000% fits my normal –
like your criteria for what you're looking for to pick a game.
Yep.
And that criteria leads you to pick Notre Dame.
Yep. Can't do it, though.
Why is that?
I mean, I don't mind if you guys do, because you either take Notre Dame or you probably don't play it.
Stay away.
But I think Georgia wins.
Oof.
So, because now let me tell you.
All right.
So numbers wise, it fits.
Okay.
Percentage of the public perception, what's going on. Here's the X factor. There's two. Notre Dame's playing without their best defensive lineman.
Yep.
And Georgia has a backup quarterback. So did the line recalibrate, or is it like, what would I have made this had Stockton been playing all along? Probably right. It's probably right. So it offsets like the data.
You think?
For me.
Yeah.
For me. I'm telling you.
I just keep coming back to as many flaws as Carson Beck has.
If this game was -1 with Beck playing, I'd tell you Notre Dame lock it up.
Really?
Yes. Notre Dame lock it up if the line was -1. Either way.
Really?
100.
Because I just look.
I'm straight. I'm pretty consistent with this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I would.
So
can't do it though.
Okay, so explain to me the Beck versus Stockton thing a little bit more, because I'm sitting here and I go, okay, you may not love Carson Beck, but he's a starter for a reason.
Right. But Stockton is inexperienced in games like this.
Yeah.
That alone should be worth a point or two or three.
So you think the line's too low for Notre Dame based on what it should be with a backup quarterback?
Yes. And
so
listen, there are a lot of these idiots that all they do is they get on TikTok and they spout off 2 seconds worth of information. And it's like they're reporting the news. Don't listen to people like that. Stockton is inexperienced. It's not the fact that he was a 4-star or 5-star. It's not the fact
he's
that
never been in the spot.
He's never been in this spot.
Carson Beck has been in this spot.
So yes.
Okay.
Very experienced. So it's not
your issue is that
it's not a talent for talent swap.
So your issue is that the line stinks because Notre Dame should be favored by more.
So given what I know about Stockton, and you're talking to a Georgia I won't say fan, but
no, but you,
I mean clearly
like him, you watch him a lot. Yeah.
Yes. Like Georgia's going to have to play different.
100%. Yeah.
And I get it. They still want to run they're just going to have to play different. So I mean I just you do with it what you will. I'm just telling you that the thing that throws off my statistical eye is the fact it's not accounting for I can't account for a backup quarterback playing.
So for you, it'd probably be a stay away.
Yeah. You know how much I love Notre Dame.
I've been convinced Notre Dame's winning this game as soon as the matchups came out.
I still think I'm safe by saying one of the three teams that I think is the most cohesive will win the national championship.
Texas, Georgia, or Notre Dame?
Texas, Georgia, or no. Well, and Penn State was my fourth.
Oh yeah. It wasn't Texas. It was it was Penn State, Georgia, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I do. I think it's Notre Dame. I picked Notre Dame to win the national championship. I pick them to win this game.
I'm crazy because I would guess, and TK would know because clearly he and Aaron are the two biggest degenerates I know.
Yeah, they hop on those lines early.
But I would imagine Ohio State has to currently be the fave now
to win the title.
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah, I believe they're the betting favorite now
because they were third going in, right?
Yes,
which is weird for an 8 seed.
Yes, but I mean,
but it was only like what was it? It's $30.
Well, and what did we say? The top 4 teams were separated by like plus 200 to plus 260.
Yeah.
So, the favorites were the betting favorite is kind of a loose term in that situation. But I don't know. I just sit here and I go, okay, because the guy's never been in this situation with Stockton, because I like Notre Dame anyway. Like if Carson Beck was playing in this game, I'd be a lot more hesitant because that's the guy that's been there. Whatever flaws he has, he's not going to be overwhelmed by the moment. Mm-hmm. Gunnar Stockton's never been in this moment before. And falling behind early because you get shell-shocked a little bit can kill you in games like this, right? I mean, we saw it with Arizona State. If Arizona State doesn't get shell-shocked early, they win that football game, probably, right? I mean, if it plays out the same way.
And if TK is right, then he said Ohio State moved to the fave after they beat Tennessee.
Yeah, that makes sense because people were super impressed with him. That makes sense.
Okay,
but I'm taking Notre Dame lock, stock, and barrel.
All right, you want to lock it up?
I'm locking it in.
You want me to? You
got any other ones today?
Yeah. So after you take Ravi's advice and you need to get back even,
which DB's been way better than me, so
you take you take a 6 o'clock basketball tip.
Oh, what do we got?
Your FAU Owls.
My FAU Owls. Okay.
Catching 3.5.
Okay.
From a top 20-ish ranked Memphis Tigers.
Okay. You want FAU plus 3.5.
Give me 3 in the.
Okay.
It'll be like
with the 7-6 Owls over the top 20 Tigers.
Mess around and win it outright.
There you go. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. That's Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Get to warhorsecasino.com to see all their promotions and house rules. We'll be back to wrap up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back here, Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. And we've got to tell you about our friends over at Game Day Men's Health.
Yeah, place to be. Get in and out. Just 1 hour max. I mean, max.
Yeah.
It was 45 minutes with just
it was both of us.
The two of us.
Yeah.
Complete panels done. I feel incredible. I probably still don't look very good because I'm just not a good-looking guy. But
it's the jet lag. It's the jet
lag.
Listen,
I feel amazing. Everything from peptides to tests to you want to do weight loss, you can do weight loss.
Vitamins.
Yeah.
Got the B12.
The B12 shots,
yeah.
baby. Boing! And just visit Game Day. What? I just was like,
the B12. Yeah, you're feeling good.
That's all.
Feeling froggy.
I don't know where you're at with that.
No, I need vitamins too. I've been eating a lot of veggies.
Ooh, I do not.
I don't need. Yeah, so you need help there.
Get GameDayMen'sHealth.com. I'm telling you, it's a fantastic, easy website to navigate to.
And super cool folks over there.
I got to drive past there. Taking B Mac home.
Yeah, I got to go next week and get my next blood blood checked. Yeah, so we'll see how we're doing.
As do I, because we're on a very similar schedule.
Yeah, we are. I was supposed to go this week and it didn't work out, so we just pushed it to next week.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
just wait for Scott or Chris to tell me where to be.
So you're like, hey bud, you got to come on in.
Yeah, he's the GOAT. Like I had to lock him in text wise.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's the GOAT.
They are they're super fun to deal with over there, so we appreciate Game Day Men's Health. Make sure you go get a consultation over there. We were talking about Notre Dame and Georgia tonight. A lot of people are on Penn State these days. A lot of people are feeling good about Penn State.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't fit the eye test necessarily, but they win a lot.
Yeah, and how much of this am I just sitting there and being like, I don't trust James Franklin?
I mean, maybe, but statistically, like, that's a misnomer.
I know, but like the perception of who
I get it, because he's really good against everybody not named Michigan and Ohio State. So the trust thing is weird,
regardless of how good that other team is.
But guess what, though? So I saw two hypotheticals of lines, whether it was Georgia or
like look-ahead lines,
Notre Dame.
Yeah,
and this was, I think, on ESPN. It was one. If it was Notre Dame would be favored.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 2.5 if it was Georgia. So apparently,
they think Georgia's better.
No. Apparently the James Franklin phenomenon only exists in our heads.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty comparable, whether it's Notre Dame or Georgia, that Penn State belongs. So they think pretty highly of Penn State.
Fair. Another thing that may or may not exist only in our heads, Tony asks on Twitter, he goes, are we sure the line isn't still just being affected by the SEC
TG?
bias?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but that has been disproven.
It's been disproven in results, but not necessarily in lines.
Well, it hasn't mattered for Georgia.
No,
which is all it really matters. Kirby's been here, done that.
Yeah,
and he's done it for a while. So whatever opinion you think there is of Georgia, they've earned it.
That's been accurate, right?
Yeah,
There's about two teams currently in the SEC that have earned their reputation. One of them is definitely Georgia.
Yeah.
I haven't decided about Texas. Like, they've been really good the last 2 years. They also play like they do for half the game against Arizona State a lot.
Again, I am shocked it's 6.
For Ohio State?
Yeah.
I'm not. I think it's an overreaction to what we saw. Like, I'm not shocked by that. I do think it's too high. But I don't think it's shocking that after seeing how Texas played this week and how Ohio State played this week, that it would open that big.
Yeah, and it's a shame, too, because football is not built to get these great runs from low seeds. And it was my 1A gripe.
Yep.
Where people thought that expanding the playoffs would promote parity, which I said, you listen, Cincinnati still isn't going to win a national championship. But I'm not going to regurgitate that conversation, except just to say it's not impossible, but it's close that you will have upsets week after week in college football. Not by the same. It just doesn't happen.
So can I make an argument here? I think it's going to be and I think the March Madness is much more similar to that than we realize.
Not really.
Well, no. So here, most of the time, we don't get these Cinderellas actually winning national championships, right? That generally doesn't happen. We generally don't even get Cinderellas, the big Cinderellas, in the Final Four. We see them in the Sweet 16, sometimes in the Elite Eight, and then occasionally it's a very big deal when a George Mason or a Loyola or whoever makes the Final Four, right? But they pretty much never win the national championship, right? Like, that's true. I think you're going to see on a smaller scale something similar with college football. You may see a one-off where an Arizona State can beat a Texas. You may see a one-off where a Boise State beats somebody. Those teams aren't going to win 4 games in a row, right? Like, that's basically what you're saying. You could see
there's not going to be.
You're not going to see Cincinnati win 4 games in a row
because you need more. You need more than just a prayer at the buzzer,
and you need more good guys, right? You could have the best player on the floor in basketball and win 3 games in a row if the matchup's right, and not have the next 2 through 10 best guys on the floor, right? Like, that happens a lot, especially in college basketball. In football, you need more than that. You need more than just the best guy on the field at any given time. I do think, though, that we have this perception of March Madness that isn't really accurate. Like, the Cinderellas don't win national championships. Most of the time, they don't make it past the Sweet 16. They win 2 games. We get really excited. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That sounds kind of anecdotal. I don't know about that.
I'll go back and run the numbers if you want me to.
What were you call a Cinderella? 6 or lower seed?
Sure.
Yeah, I would check that.
Well, I would go 6 or lower, although I'm going to exclude Blue Bloods. Like, because sometimes you get a team that has a slump in the middle of the season, but they're highly talented, high pedigree, like a North Carolina. Like, I would exclude blue bloods, but I'll go 6 or lower minus blue bloods.
Okay.
And then I'll do the math on it. Because I'm talking about
So very few Butlers, UABs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, Butler's an enormous outlier.
I don't know if I would fight over that.
But
that seems, if you exclude blue bloods.
Yeah. But that's plausible in college football, to get a team that wins a game, but they're not winning national championships.
Would you exclude a team that was ranked really high and then fell towards the end of the year?
So I think that's kind of what you're talking about. If the blue blood is in that cap,
Yeah. I'm talking about,
like Duke may hit a skid.
Yes. Duke might hit a skid. North Carolina hits a skid. Even like I would consider Gonzaga, like maybe they lose some of their early non-con games before they get into conference play, so they end up as a lower seed.
I mean, it took more of Texas than, because let's not act like Scadaboo's pass was good.
Yeah,
right?
no,
it was underthrown. Like
he had to come.
It took some things.
Sure, 100%.
To even have you remotely think Arizona State was in that game.
For sure.
Very similar.
Texas should have beat their brains in.
To Boise.
100%. 100%. But Arizona State still had a 4th and 13 to win the game.
No, I understand.
You know what I mean? Like, that's your shot at the buzzer, is your 4th and 13, and they missed it. It went, like that's the corollary there for me. Because
you needed a non-target. There was a lot.
Yeah. Like, that's probably targeting.
Yeah.
Like, that's a targeting. Yeah. Like, if we're gonna, I've seen less called.
I did not understand that.
I've seen a lot less called.
Yeah.
Like, that's a targeting. I don't know what to tell you.
They're gonna have to redo that.
Yeah, yes. It's a mess. Like, no one has any. It's gotten to the point of a catch in the NFL. No one has any idea what it means. It's just this thing that we have a list of criteria that. It's like, well, you have to complete the catch. Well, what does complete the catch mean? And you have to maintain control through the end of okay, well, what does that mean?
I feel like I know what a catch is way more than I know what targeting is, though.
They've cleaned the catch up. But about 4 years ago, we were in a place where, like, I have peak Des Bryant Cowboys. We had no idea what a catch was.
Peak Jesse James Steelers versus the Patriots. Fudge.
Who cares?
I know what a catch wasn't. Jackie Smith. Take that. That's
you know what I mean, though? Like, you go 4 or 5 years ago in the NFL, everybody's like, I think it's a catch, but I don't really know. I mean, Calvin Johnson had one in the end zone back in the day where it's like, that's clearly a catch. He's getting up.
Why you got to be bringing up old stuff?
Because I like Calvin Johnson. Leaves the ball on the ground.
You don't even know whether you want to be a Lions fan
or
a
a Raiders fan. You can't get mad at me for talking about half the league because they're your team.
I listened to a talk show in New York. I mean, weird. I was listening to sports talk.
Big Francesa guy?
On vacation. No. Who was trying to convince me that the Raiders may be the best job.
No. That's dumb.
So he made an interesting argument.
You can make whatever argument you want.
I'm all ears.
And I've got the
You have a non-meddlesome ownership group.
It's not a good ownership group.
And you're only a quarterback away. He likes their other talent. So, and he's like, hey, I get it. They play in a miserable division, but as long as Mahomes is there, it doesn't really matter. Like we've seen what Harbaugh did.
You can finish second. It's fine.
You know what I mean?
Does he have silver and black sunglasses on?
No, it was very compelling.
It's a bad owner, though. I get he's not overly meddlesome, but it's a bad owner.
It was very compelling.
And I think he's more meddlesome than we give him credit for.
I don't know.
I don't think he's as loud about it as a Jerry Jones, but I think he is quietly very meddlesome.
You think you think the job Vrabel was sitting on is New England?
Maybe. I mean, maybe.
Because you have to fire Mayo, don't you?
I think you have to. I don't know how you run him back.
Because May's pretty good.
Yeah, May is legit. Like, you gave yourself a chance with that draft pick, and they shouldn't have been as bad as they were.
And they got nothing around him.
No, they're not good. They shouldn't have been as bad as they were. But the Raiders is absolutely not the best job. I mean, the Giants' job isn't technically open yet, but I take the Giants' job because you want to talk about a quarterback away? Then what about the Jets' job? You want to talk about a quarterback away? There's some better rosters than the Raiders for sure.
Oh, it's like, wow, he said that?
Out loud even.
And doubled down.
Maybe we'll get into a little more NFL tomorrow. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up on Friday.